Say something. It's like a podcast, but it's a vodcast, so you can listen and watch. It's like news talk or sports talk, but it's life talk, so we can walk the road together. On today's show, Jeff Hendricks joins us to talk about life tips for parents, teens, and all the in-betweens, the ups and downs, and the joy in the midst.
And I think that's true of hard times in our lives too, or those times when we don't measure up or compare. Taking a step back and thinking, okay, this is what it looks like now. I wonder what it's going to look like in 5 years or 10 years.
Thanks for joining the conversation. Here we go. I wanted to welcome everybody to the parking lot of our school. And this is our friend Jeff. Jeff Hendricks is headmaster at Providence Christian School of Texas, where he has been in a middle school teaching or administration role since 2005. He has a bachelor's degree in English with a minor in theological studies from Gordon College and a master of English at the University of Dallas. He is an avid reader and sports fan, specifically the Texas Rangers, but mostly he genuinely enjoys kids, teaching, and learning. We just wanted to have you on because you've done, throughout the years, he's done these really great, like, let's take a pulse and do a gut check on where we're living right now, because these kids are living under so much pressure to have to do and to be, and to kind of be a persona instead of a person.
Oh, for sure. Well, sometimes it's in those moments where they're not trying to put on that persona that I feel like they really express themselves, or you get that glimpse of who they are. Right. Whether it's one-on-one in private, or sometimes, you know, as an English teacher, I get it through their writing, and get to see maybe it's a journal entry that they write that shows what's really going on inside, something that they might not otherwise say out loud to their friends.
That's true.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
We just got Courtney calling in. Hey, Courtney.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Courtney.
Yeah, I was reading something earlier, and it's one of those, articles that hooks you. They were talking about how, an awful article about technology in our teens, and then when you opened it up, it said, you know what? We gotta look back for a second. Yes, Snapchat can be used for evil. And they said our teens are actually not bad people. And the woman went on to share that her daughter had shared that she was sick or had a surgery or something like that on Snapchat, and how all these students showed up around the clock. Meals started showing up, and a balloon, and friends that came to watch a movie with her. And it just made me think, and to ask you, as a headmaster and as being a part of these kids' lives for so long, what are some of the good things that you're seeing? Because I think we can, as parents, harp on just the scary stuff and the negative things when they're great kids and they're doing some really great things out there.
Okay.
That's a great question, and something that I've really been trying to consciously think about. I had a friend talk to me recently about making note of those situations where you feel your heart rate going up,
right?
Stressful things, and so that's been a good exercise. But along with that, I've been trying to write down things that also have brought me joy. And so, in light of that question, I was just talking to Brenda about the way several of the high school freshmen who graduated from Providence last year showed up at the football game last week, and how meaningful that was to the boys that are still here and on the team. And they were talking about high school and their experiences, and just that show of support. You might expect we're too cool for middle school now mentality. But to see them show up in support was really sweet. I also get to visit with students after several years after they graduate. And I was talking to a young man who's a senior in high school recently about his aspirations to go to the Naval Academy. And just thinking back to the kid I remember in middle school, and now to see sort of those qualities that you could kind of see in seed form really starting to grow and blossom into fruition and shape and direct his life. It's really neat.
What are some tips that you have to be able to take those moments to find the joy in the situation?
I think a lot of it comes from trying to take the long view rather than in the moment. I was having a conversation with some new faculty here at school about the danger of making too much of a comparison at a particular moment, particularly in a child's development. And we were talking about reading, and I just asked how many of you were reading before you were 4? How many of you were reading when you were not until you were 6.5? And then we all kind of had a laugh, and who cares?
Right.
But in a given moment, we tend to make a lot of it like it's going to affect where the child ends up, or it's going to set them on a course for the rest of their life. And development happens at different speeds for different people, and we all get there.
Yes.
What about for the parent who may unknowingly do a lot of comparison, projection with their child?
Yeah, I think the more... One thing that has helped me, and this may just be from my perspective as an English teacher, but reflecting on the whole story when you get to the end of a novel. I think about a novel like To Kill a Mockingbird, and having a conversation with a class when we got to the end, and seeing the way all the pieces were fitting together. And when we encountered them the first time, you kind of scratch your head, like, what is this about? And then when you get to the end, it's an, oh, now I see what that was for. And I think that's true of hard times in our lives too, or those times when we don't measure up or compare. Just taking a step back and thinking, okay, this is what it looks like now. I wonder what it's going to look like in 5 years or 10 years, and where this will take me.
I do think that we unknowingly kind of do that comparison thing, and our children take away from our conversation, well, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I should be more of.
Kids are so prone to hear I'm bad.
Yeah. You know, we are prone to, I think, focus on the negatives.
Yeah.
You kind of blow off the positives unless it's something particularly spectacular. But even there, you have a certain achievement, and you almost immediately feel the pressure of doing it again.
It's so true.
And it's almost a trap.
So true.
And so, you know, reminding students in particular that it's more about the process than the result.
It's more about the process than the result. That's a hard message to sell these days.
You know what? There's so much truth to that. I'm reading this book right now about habits and how they form, and it's about development, recognizing the cue, developing the process to reach the same successful result time after time after time. So, and that's one of the things that you in academia do, help the children develop a process that can be applied in different scenarios, at the high school level, at the collegiate level, and then in work, I think. So how can we be more strategic in helping our children develop processes?
Yeah. Well, and you know, I guess sometimes drawing parallels to sports helps me because it's a lot more physical, and I can see it. But thinking about a 10-year-old who's shooting a basketball on a 10-foot goal, and how awkward that looks, and often that they're more successful when they shoot in unorthodox ways.
Yes,
but
as in underhand.
Underhand.
Yes.
But they're developing the wrong habit, and over time, it's actually more beneficial for them to miss a lot right now, because as they get bigger, their success rate is gonna develop as they grow. And they'll actually be better prepared in the long run if they miss more now.
That's good.
And I think, so I think the same is true in lots of other areas. It's just not quite so obvious.
Yeah, but I think then I go to the parent role again. We strive for them to have this perfect result every
right
time.
now.
Yeah, and that we kind of interfere with the process.
Maybe.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, I just think it's a product. You know, people would say, what a shame that we live in this day and age of technology, because everything is as if it's on a stage. And things have the appearance of instant. And so, okay, it does.
You don't see what goes on behind the
scenes.
Yeah.
And so that's the world you live in. So how do you walk in the world in a healthy way? Because you can't change there are a lot of things you can't change in the environment, but you certainly can change how you react within the environment. And I've watched you through the years do that in such a healthy way. And so it's like that long-term view, the going ahead and sticking with the process, like what the process is. and not being afraid. How do you handle that when fear enters the picture?
Well, a lot, you know, the longer you go at something and the more you see the end result pay off, the more confidence you have in the process. But there is always this lingering fear, I guess, or doubt. You know, it worked before, but is it going to work again this time? If we keep going in this direction, I really think that that's where prayer comes into the picture, because without trust in a sovereign God who's authoring our story, you are prone to fear. But knowing that He can redeem even bad things is, I think, sort of the hope that I return to often, to just help me to trust and push forward and keep going. But I could tell you many stories of kids whose parents were, you know, pulling their hair out. We were wondering, what are we going to do here? And in 2 or 3 years' time, look back and think, wow.
Oh, yeah.
What a transformation!
Yeah.
We kept with the process, and look what resulted.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we did. But I think the more you as a parent can
Yes.
have that healthy view, I think the more that will be transmitted to the child, and they'll be able to roll with the punches as they come.
Yeah.
One thing that you do so well is encourage people, especially around award times or any, you know, even with grades, like that someone, it's so easy for kids to try to one-up each other on the grades, or to one-up each other, or let an award define them, whether they were the one that scored the football touchdown or anything like that. And you have such a great message on being able to accept who you are rather than, and I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you deal with even handing out awards to kids, knowing full well there's an entire audience of kids that could very well win whatever award.
Right, but only a handful.
I know, it's like you only get to see a few.
Yeah. Well, here at this school, I mean, one of the things that helps with that is knowing that we will award or bless each student at the end. So that there's, you know, our graduation ceremony where each student gets called up and we read a blessing about their character. So knowing that that's going to take place, or that I've been able to do that in the classroom, is something that I think helps in that regard. But you know, one thing I like to you know, think about, again, going to the sports world, is that just because a particular player gets an MVP award doesn't mean that everybody else in the league is a bad player.
Right.
And sometimes we negatively interpret the awards given to other people as reflections on our inability to measure up. And I do think that that's dangerous, because it's not saying that you're bad but so-and-so is good, so that this person's going to get an award. It's just what this person did this year was notable, and so we're going to acknowledge that and honor that. And I think that's the kind of the perspective that I try to have, and realizing too that a kid who wins an award can walk away with the wrong message just as easily as the kid that doesn't.
Boy, that's so true.
That is so true.
But I think that's true of any good thing in life,
I
that
do
you
too.
can make it an idol, and it can reveal or encourage the wrong character just as easily as it can honor and direct a child towards virtue,
or anybody,
or a parent, or an adult. Yes, for sure,
at any stage.
Well, help us parents. What would be an ideal way of us handling the conversation in the car home?
So the conversation afterwards, what does that look like? That's a good question. I think you know, I think I would ask questions to see how the child was responding.
That's okay. That is such a great first response, because sometimes I think we assume the way that they are, what they're thinking, and they may not be thinking that at all, which I have found ushers in fear almost instantly, because they'll be like, should I be thinking about that?
Right.
And it's like, whoa, I didn't know. But once it's out, it's like you can't go back and get it. So ask questions of your child to kind of get a gauge of where they are.
Sometimes too, I think the emotion of the moment can be overwhelming, and the individual might not be able to know exactly why they're feeling a certain way.
Right.
And so the question can help them pinpoint a little bit more clearly where the reaction is coming from.
So don't get little Johnny in the car and say, so, Joe got the MVP award. What's wrong with you?
That's right.
That's what you don't want to do.
Exactly.
Are you thinking about that right now?
And you know, it can also be an opportunity, whether they won an award or didn't, for them to reflect on their own achievement. Because when they look back, I think it's universally true that when, particularly in school, you look back 9 months over the course of an academic year, and you pull out that assignment that you did at the beginning of the year, and you kind of laugh.
Yeah.
Think, wow, I've come a long way.
Right.
Hopefully.
And
Well,
everybody's there, no matter what.
That's right,
you've
that's
come, and it's that perspective that is so helpful.
Even if you made a C at the beginning of the year and you made a C at the end, what you've
still
done to
progress.
earn that C at the end of the year is a lot different than what you
right.
did at the beginning.
Right.
I agree.
So ask the questions, get perspective. Another thing that you have touched some lives with is just your message on joy and finding joy in the midst.
I feel like that's something that God has really been teaching me a lot lately, and part of that comes from that long view. I think is that the individual moment doesn't carry so much weight, and so you have the lightheartedness maybe to look around and just enjoy it and take it with a grain of salt, and see. I was reading a poem this summer, kind of reflecting on it. Where it talked about these glorious things that are here in front of us, but nobody's looking, and so they're sort of, I don't know, they're not wasted, but they're not enjoyed to the extent that they could be. And so that was sort of a convicting thing for me to look around and see what's here to be enjoyed.
And how has that changed, like just specifically?
I've been just more conscious of looking intentionally, whether it's looking at the sky on my drive into work and noticing, oh, the moon is there, and enjoying that, or making note of a child's play on the playground at playtime and how cute and delightful it is. I had a mom the other day tell me that water bottles that were left in the pantry on the floor became a moment for joy in her family when she confronted the family, and it was the dad was the one that had left them there, and they just had this is okay, this is humorous, and we don't have to take everything, so it doesn't all mean carry a lot of weight.
Right.
And I think the more I, again, cultivating that trust in a sovereign author of the story that's going to fit all these details together, to a certain extent, we're along for the ride. And so we might as well look around and enjoy that.
It's such a good word.
How long have you been in education now?
This is year 13.
So how has your perspective changed? In the last 13 years, how have you changed as an individual as a result of being in education for the last 13 years?
Oh, goodness. How long do we have?
Plenty of time.
Plenty of time. I think the reason I enjoy being here is because I'm always learning new things. There's new students in the classroom. There's new families in the school. And I'm constantly being shown, I think most often, that my preconceived notions of how things are far too limited, and that there's more. I'm constantly being surprised by something I thought couldn't be done that actually is accomplished, or things that are headed this direction and they take a surprising turn another direction. And again, it's a reminder to me to slow down and enjoy what's around me, rather than thinking I'm in control of it all.
Is that what you would say would be the biggest effect even on you as you parent your children? Because now you've moved beyond an educator as a job to an educator as a dad. And
well, now you're making it personal.
well, no.
I hope this carries through to my parenting.
Well, I'm guessing it naturally does. It's an overflow. What you just said is so deep that it's like if you've tasted that, and I think that it's sort of like, you know, pulling the curtain back on the Wizard at Oz, going, oh, I didn't realize it was that, you know? And so it would, even if it didn't permanently affect like every moment, it certainly has an effect through the moments. And maybe that's part of the perspective too, is that it's not this instant society that says it's an end-all be-all today in this moment. That's not real. It just isn't real. And so saying no to that, to be able to say yes to, slowing down is okay. And perspective is good.
Well, and slowing down is even necessary because, pardon the use of more metaphors, but I've been thinking about the way that fields get cultivated. And when you're looking for a crop, there's so much work that goes in where you don't get anything. To fertilize and cultivate the soil with your eye on long-term growth and productivity. And so I really do think the same is true of parenting and children. You're doing a lot, especially when they're young, that doesn't give you any immediate benefit. But you're not doing it for the immediate benefit, like you just said. It's for the long haul.
I think you can apply that too in friendships and being not afraid to be authentic or real. Even the cultivation of the trust in a friendship to be able to go, okay, and you get through it. And so that analogy has lots more legs than even just parenting, you know.
The other thing that's really blessed me is being able to say, I may not have the right perspective on this situation. And inviting others in. You know?
I think I live
because
in that place.
moment it's like, this is the way it should be, you know? And because that's the way I see it, but the way I see it may not be what's true.
It's so true.
Are you saying that you're glad I finally got to this place? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just thinking of the way that I've experienced that myself recently, where I've had somebody else even use my own words, but applied to my situation. I thought, yes, good. I need that reminder too.
Right.
So it's good the way that you can gain perspective or corrections from other people.
That perspective goes just a long way, and the whole long view, it works itself out.
It does. Well, and to piggyback on that a little bit, having that experience of looking back and thinking, I knew so much, also gives you perspective on your current outlook, knowing that in 10 years,
for sure.
Boy, I wonder what I'll think about what I'm thinking right now.
I tell our kids that all the time. I really do, and it's fun to hear them say it to each other. Because then I'm like, they've experienced a taste of that. So, okay, if you had just the Jeff Hendricks kind of top tips for how to manage these junior high and high school years, what would you say?
And run is not an option.
Run away.
That's not an option.
Remember that we all get to the other side.
Yes.
The forms that the pressures come in today look different than they did when we were there, but they're the same pressures and same crises of self-confidence, feelings of insecurity. And I think, holding their hands through the drama and the ups and downs without engaging the drama with them, if that makes sense.
Totally.
I understand how you're feeling, and you hear that, you affirm that, but you don't allow yourself to get caught up in it. Gives them a place of stability that they can weather those ups and downs in, I think is important.
I also heard you say, don't worry about the fear. Don't get consumed in the fear when those unexpected things happen.
because everything is temporary. The only thing we know is truly eternal and lasting is guaranteed. It's for us, and so it's not something we have to worry about. And so the ups and downs, you can enjoy the ups and not get too down about the downs, because you know where it's all headed.
That's a good word. I love that.
Nice move, Kay.
That is. It's like, yes.
It
I love that. That's a great word. Jeff Hendricks, thank you for...
Thanks so much for having me, Kay. This has been fun.
Hanging out.
We'll see how fun. We'll have him back too, but maybe to be continued. There's a wealth of knowledge and great information here. We pursue all these things in the world and we think they're successful, like all these things that we set up as success for kids, success according to the world, which would be like, what do you think they are today?
Oh my gosh, it goes to your financial status, it goes to what kind of job you have, and all of these things we want to position our children to attain.
Well, and ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's like an identifier. I've heard the word used, identifier, and like what team I'm on, what my business card says, all kinds of things that really mess with you if the identifier changes.
Yeah.
If you move or you lose a job. Yeah.
I mean, is that the best way to set up our children, though?
Right. Well, I mean, plenty of stories about people that reach all of those things, and then they wonder, okay, now what's next?
Right.
You either stress about maintaining that status because it is your identity, or you keep pursuing something that's just a little bit further ahead.
Yeah, because you get it, and then the next, like you said earlier, that is brutal. The mark that you try to hit and it instantly moves when you get there.
But this is nice, but there's a still further inner ring or something that I'm trying to attain.
I think it has more to do with how much weight we put on that identifier as defining me. I think it goes to where you find your self-worth.
Or whether the worth or the sense of satisfaction comes in the label that you get, or from the thing that you did itself.
Yes, that's good. So true.
Because a lot of times I think we seek the grade,
right,
or the award or the trophy, and lose the joy of just having played the game well, or have written a great paper and enjoyed what that was all about.
How do you do it though? Like that is so true and good, and it's like, yes, but boy, you have to be determined to be able to stay that road. You
really do. And I don't know that, if there's a secret to doing that, but being mindful of it along the way.
That's the
part
start
of it.
That's where we start.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's so true. I think that's wise. Thank you for sharing that with us.
These are good reminders.
Good reminders.